Hi, Mike. Good to see you. Thanks for doing this.
Hey, Paul.
Um, I guess first of all, just how will you divide the stadium, and are there limits to the size of groups that can sit together? Um, let's start there.
Yeah, afternoon, Paul, and thank you everybody for joining on short notice. We appreciate it. Obviously, really exciting day for us, and really for our fans who have just been itching to come back. It's been it'll have been 11 months since our last event with fans, and so we are just so hungry to see our fans back. It's going to be a really momentous day. Our first game will be April 9th, Thorns game. To answer your question, Paul, we what we did was we worked with actually a Barcelona-based company to basically transpose our stadium against a new build a new manifest based on the parameters that we have to include for safety protocols: 6 feet apart, skipping a row, and we put our seats in pods of 1, 2, 4, and 8 based on sort of distribution of our season tickets. And then what we'll do, Paul, is we'll go to all of our season ticket holders in order of their seniority, their tenure, and have them opt in for their seats. And because we're configuring the stadium differently, not everybody's going to be able to sit not only in their exact seats, but nor necessarily in the same area. But we think that's a cool thing because I think some people will want to try different areas and sit in different parts of the stadium. So we'll go through that iterative process of asking people to sort of opt in and choose their seats. And if we're oversubscribed, which we expect we will be given the number of seats we'll have and the number of season ticket holders we have, that those who don't get the first crack at game one will have access to game two and so on.
Hey there, thanks for giving us a couple minutes. What is 25% at the stadium, number-wise, like roughly? And in addition to the seating pods and skipping rows and that sort of thing, what other safety protocols are you guys going to have in place there? Thank you.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mike. We our capacity is 25,214. So 25% of that is roughly 6,500, and so that 6,500 will be spaced out throughout the stadium. And we've in the 13 months since we've had an event, it's given us the opportunity to really study best practices. We've talked to venues across the country, across sports, who are doing this already. Obviously, there have been many hundreds of live outdoor events in the last number of months. So we've been able to learn a lot, and so we're going to have staggered entrances and certain paths through the stadium that are designated, and up aisles and down aisles, and we're going to be completely cashless. We're going to have mobile ordering. We're going to have a plethora of sanitation stations, staggered exiting, and those type of safety protocols that we found to be best practices around the sports industry.
Hey, Mike, long game coming. One step at a time. I understand that, but what hope does this have for you? Then maybe by late summer, we're looking at 50%, 75, full house this season.
Yeah, Nick, it is a really important first step and a long time coming. It is going to, and I know you'll be there. It is going to be a really emotional reunion. I think our first events back. Our sincere hope is that this is the start of a build back to 100% capacity. Exactly what the sequence is and when, it's obviously hard to project. We've all been terrible prognosticators of the future over the last 13 months. However, it really does feel like there's a real hopeful trajectory of increased capacity. You've seen around the country that in different states, they're already at higher numbers, and in some cases even 100%. And so I should say up front, I haven't mentioned this yet, but the state's been really great to work with. They obviously understand the importance to all performing arts and live event venues of bringing fans back. Moreover, the psychic impact we think us coming back and hopefully soon the Blazers and the Hops and other sporting events to the city and to the region and to downtown Portland specifically, the emotional and psychic lift it will give our community, not to mention the economic benefit it will give to all of our local businesses who are dying for fans to come back, is going to be enormous. And so, yes, Nick, we hope that this is a first step. Exactly when we're at 50 and beyond, we don't know. But certainly, if you look at the vaccine rollout and the downward trajectory of infections, it all points to a hopeful sign of more fans to come.
Hey, Mike. I was wondering if you could, I see you kind of touched on it so far, but I was wondering if you could elaborate on that 25% number and if you have any background on how that was kind of arrived at as the appropriate first step for this.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the state in how they came up with that. It's pretty consistent well with our West Coast brethren states. It has, it ended up actually working well. We ran, I mentioned earlier, how we generated manifests, and one of the gating factors early on in our work was, all right, if we open up the whole stadium and had 6 feet between pods, what would it look like? And it turns out it's about 25%. And so I don't necessarily think that was how the state went about it. I think I don't know, it's probably a question better for the people in the governor's office and OHA. But it turns out to be a number for us that's, a significant number of 6,500 people. The place, even though not full, we know is going to be rocking. And it also, it gives ample space between our seating pods. And so, I'm not quite sure what their rationale or process was, but it seems to be consistent with a lot of states, certainly on the West Coast, and it's a number we're certainly comfortable coming out of the gate with.
There we go. Hey, Mike. I've got a two-part question for you. First, just a clarification on the 6,500 that will be in attendance. How many of those are season ticket holders, and how many can get tickets, just as part of the general public?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Travis. We are going to go to our season ticket holders first. And in the case of the Timbers, we have north of 19,000 season ticket holders. In the case of the Thorns, we have about 12,000 season ticket holders. And so we're going to go out to our season ticket holders first. If for some reason, we don't fulfill all of our supply with our season ticket holders, we will then go out to single game buyers. We don't expect that to be a necessary step in either case. So that'll be the sequence. We'll go in order of season ticket holder seniority, give them the chance to opt in. We'll go to the next. And if for some reason there's not, all of our 6,500 tickets are not yet accounted for, then we'll go out to the public. But we don't anticipate that, Travis.
So, Mike, another thing I was wondering about the service workers who are going to be there in the stadium as part of this rollout. I was wondering if you could speak to some of the ways in which the team's going to help make sure that they're protected in this process.
Yeah, thank you, Will. We as you know, you've been in the stadium a lot. We've got an absolute amazing group of ushers and security members and food service workers. It's really a fantastic group. And we've been in touch with them really over the last 13 months on an ongoing basis. And we've done some financial support with them early on as best we could. And interestingly, and not surprisingly, but interestingly, a huge percentage want to come back and be part of it. And so we have a lot of specific training around COVID for each of them. They'll be all temperature checked. They'll all be wearing masks. And I should mention that I think it's implicit in all of this, but masks are mandatory for everybody at our games. And they'll be socially distanced, and they'll be given some really good intensive training and temperature checked and everything else. We as you recall, Will, we conducted fanless games beginning last August. We did 9 Timbers games and 9 Vancouver Whitecaps games here last summer. So that was a really good baseline to run events with critical personnel. There were 300 plus cameramen, workers, photographers, team personnel that were all sort of necessary to run those games and most proximate to the field. And so that protocol has been in place for, since last summer. And that's sort of the baseline protocol. And from there, we built out this broader protocol to obviously include fans and a broader cross section of fan experience workers like you referenced.
Yeah, Mike, I'm curious about entry and exit. Are you going to do if I get a ticket, we'll have an entry time, or how are you going to keep people from, like the Timbers Army, storming the gates?
Yeah, Paul, it was interesting. Our first instinct early on was we need timed entrances and timed exits. And in talking to our colleagues around sports, found that not only isn't that practical, it's just not workable. So what we're going to do is we're going to have very, much like when you enter, Paul, I don't know if you've been going to the grocery store, but if you've got to wait online, there's spaces, and once you get in the store and wait on the cashier's line, there's spaces. And so it's going to be no different. We're going to have very, very staggered, spaced out entrances. And remember, we're only bringing in 25% of the fans, so the lines and the queues are going to be much more relaxed than they are in a typical sellout 25,000 person plus game. And then we're just having a discussion today. We've learned from buildings who try the timed exits that it doesn't really work. And some people want to stay and watch the log slab ceremony. Some people want to leave early, and it just doesn't work. So we're going to encourage people explicitly to, be observant of others and leave space. And I think people will. And I think it's no different than how we all have been navigating the supermarket now. You kind of be respectful of your neighbor and you keep space as you do your business. And I think it's going to be similar. Listen, Paul, that said, we're very confident we're going to nail this, but we're going to also learn a lot in having done this. So there might be some things we tweak along the way, but we decided not to do that. We think again, it's sparsely populated around the stadium. All of our exits are going to be open. I think people are going to be respectful of others and sort of make their way out courteously, giving each other space.
There. Thanks for taking my question. What are your greatest concerns? Are you watching the numbers carefully in terms of the coronavirus transmission rates or hospital rates? Do you expect this to highly influence other stadiums around the country? Where is your sort of position as a leader doing this?
Yeah. Thank you, Diane. As I mentioned earlier, there have been, at this point, maybe many hundreds, if not over 1,000 live events around our country. NFL games and NCAA football games and the like. And there's been NBA and NHL indoor arenas have had fans. And so we're not leaders in terms of timing at all. We'll be one of the, we'll be at the back end of a lot of states and venues. And so there's real advantage to that, Diane, because like I've mentioned, we've learned a lot and we see firsthand. NFL did a study in a medical journal, published it on the efficacy of the safety protocols at their live events, and it's proven to be very safe. And fully masked outdoor events with social distancing and all the other social safety protocols I mentioned, we are fully confident that we are going to have a very safe, secure environment. And knowing our fans and our fellow Oregonians, that they will be very observant of each other and of the protocols that we have in place. And so no real worries. I just think there's a lot of new protocols that we're implementing all at once that we think will work really well. But we'll have a learning curve, and there'll be some things we do that we take away that we'll, as I mentioned earlier, maybe adjust and tweak. But we've got a great plan. We've been working on this for nearly a year. We have learned a lot from our brethren venues around the country, and we think we have an excellent plan. But I really do appreciate the question.
Hey, Mike, 25% concession stands open, nachos, beers, popcorn, all that stuff still going down?
Yeah, Nick, and leave it to you to ask about food and beverage. You're a man after my own heart. So yeah, as I mentioned up front, we've gone to a mobile ordering system where from your seat you can order. We're going to scale down the menu a bit, but certainly not nachos and beer. Our staples will be. So we're scaling down the menu a bit, but you'll be able to from your seat order and pay, and it'll direct you to the stand nearest you. And then, much like takeout food at a local place, you'll go on and pick up your food. We'll have lines open for those who don't mind going to concession stands, and those will be cashless and contactless. But we think most people are going to do what the former, which is order on their phone and pick up at their nearest stand. So we think that's going to work really well for people. And it's interesting. It's that our paperless ticketing, our cashless billing are all things we had been contemplating doing pre-COVID, because ultimately it's a better fan experience. It's more efficient and more expeditious than some old ways of doing things. So if there are some positive byproducts of all this, is some of those technologies and innovations that we had been contemplating, we've now been able to put into practice.
So kind of building on what you were talking about there, are there any other new innovations like you were talking about, or new policies or anything that fans should be aware of as they start coming back for these games?
Yeah, well, thanks. We're gonna have we already have built out a very detailed web page on all of the protocols. We're going to be communicating really actively and often with our fans on all the information that pertains to the new experience of coming to Providence Park. So know that we're going to be all out communicating with the fans. To answer your question specifically, in addition to the ones I mentioned, cashless and mobile ordering, one thing we are going to be doing is something that the NFL has been doing for a couple of years, even pre-pandemic, and that's a clear bag policy. And so that'll be a bit of a change for folks. In the NFL, if you come in, you have a clear bag, so it expedites the screening and ingress process. So we're gonna take a cue from the NFL on that and move towards that. But not a lot else will. I think people will have to move through the building in new ways. Certain aisles will be up and certain aisles will be down. At the exit, all the aisles will be up. So I think people are going to kind of figure out. We're going to be. I don't think I mentioned this, but we are going to be basically zip tying all the seats that are not in use. So to make sure that people sit in their designated seats. But other than that, I think you're going to see a full game presentation. We've been in close contact with the Timbers Army and the Riveters on what they're going to do, and obviously the Army and the Riveters are going to be, it's going to be different for them. But we hope there'll be drums and tifo but that'll be slightly different than the full throng that we're all used to. So yeah, there'll be a learning curve, I think, for our fans. Learning curve for us, but we're really confident it's going to go smoothly, and our fans are all, they get the necessary changes, and I think they're going to be really extremely cooperative.
No, I just want to follow up. So will the Timbers Army Riveters get 25% of the sections they normally have? Or are they just part of the overall ticketing?
Good question, Paul. Yes, those sections are subject to the same parameters. We're actually going to go to our supporters first and let them choose their areas. We'll have to, for obvious reasons, as you may know, Paul, the Army and the Riveters, where they typically sit, aren't reserved seats. They come and stake out their seat game by game. for for this new phase we're entering, there'll be reserve seats, so that'll be a change. So yeah, it'll be 25% and socially distanced like the rest of the stadium. They'll have the first crack at their seats, but we still think it's going to be a raucous environment that they create nonetheless. And as I wrap up, thank you all for for the questions and for taking part, and any follow-up we welcome. And let me just finish by saying, just reiterating, obviously we're super excited. It's going to be a really joyful coming together for our fans, but I think it's going to be just a really, really exciting time for the community. Even those who don't come to the game, even those who aren't necessarily fans of the Thorns and Timbers, just the people coming back, sharing the experience together in downtown Portland is going to be a really, real big emotional, economic and psychic lift for our community. And we're really, really pleased to be part of that.